Now, Jack, a completely unrelated question. Do you like MrBeast?
No.
Jack, do you think MrBeast ruined YouTube?
Yes.
Now, in all honesty, Jack, why?
Because it became more about views, money, and popularity than it did about having fun.
You just don't think he had fun playing Squid Games? You don't think he had fun riding on yachts? Building wells in Africa? I don't know.
If he had fun doing those videos, they'd be longer. We'd see the fun.
You really think he didn't enjoy playing Squid Game style challenges? You really think he didn't enjoy cruising on luxury yachts and being treated like a superstar? Wells in Africa, I don't know, maybe. But let's be honest, the lifestyle looked pretty wild. Just a year ago, even questioning MrBeast felt like social suicide on YouTube. If you dared to criticize his content, his business moves, or the direction the platform was heading, people jumped on you fast. You were called bitter, jealous, washed up, mad because you can't beat the algorithm. That was the energy. There was no middle ground. You either praised everything he did, or you were labeled as someone who couldn't keep up with the new era. That was the culture. But now, that narrative isn't aging so well. When you slow down and really look at what's happened over the last 12 months, things hit different. The awkward lie detector moment, the backlash over certain thumbnails, the controversy around creative choices that leaned heavily on automation and AI tools, and then the quiet frustration from longtime creators who've been on the platform since the early days. When you connect all those dots, it doesn't look like random hate anymore. It looks like early warning signs, because the real conversation was never about hating success. It was never about saying money is bad or that growth is wrong. It was about direction. It was about what happens when scale becomes the main goal, when bigger is always better, when optimization starts to matter more than originality. That's the shift people were trying to point out. Take the lie detector clip. On the surface, it looked harmless. A funny format, some playful tension, just content doing what content does. But inside that goofy setup, something real slipped out. There was a vibe, a moment where the joke felt a little too honest. Like behind the laughs, there was an underlying truth trying to breathe. And that's where things started to feel different. The critique wasn't about saying anyone's success wasn't earned. It wasn't about attacking charity efforts or business expansions. It was about the feeling that something had changed, that the platform itself was moving toward a hyper-optimized machine where every thumbnail, every title, every frame is engineered for maximum retention. Veteran creators started noticing it first. The ones who built audiences on personality and weird ideas. The ones who grew through trial and error. They weren't mad because someone else succeeded. They were uneasy because the blueprint was shifting. Creativity used to be messy. Now it feels calculated, data-driven, almost corporate. And when a creator grows into a full-blown company, the relationship with the audience changes too. Viewers don't just see a person anymore. They see a brand, a structure, a system designed to dominate attention. And once that shift happens, the conversation gets more serious. The AI thumbnail backlash is a perfect example. It wasn't just about a design choice. It was about authenticity. People started asking, are we watching something crafted by a creator or something assembled by a production engine? Is the human spark still there, or is it buried under layers of optimization? Again, this isn't about saying innovation is wrong. AI tools are everywhere. Automation is normal now, but when fans feel like the heart of something is fading, they react. Not out of jealousy, not out of hate, out of concern. And here's the wild part. The same critics who were dismissed a year ago are now being taken more seriously because the cracks they pointed out are harder to ignore. The tension between creativity and scale, between authenticity and efficiency, between being a YouTuber and being a media empire.
There's a new way to make professional looking viral thumbnails with zero Photoshop experience. And the best part is this new method works in every niche. Whether you do gaming, cooking, beauty, this works for all of them. From creating custom results from any channel to literally being able to put your face on a thumbnail, it literally feels like cheating. This is the home of the AI tool where you can type in any channel on all of YouTube and it will use it as inspiration for the thumbnail it's generating. So for example, let's say you're MrBeast. You would just type in MrBeast here. Now it's gonna look at all my recent videos and get inspiration from them. And for the prompt, I'm gonna type in stranded on a volcano. And there you go, we now have a thumbnail with me dangling on the side of a volcano. This is perfect for inspiration, and if you do a couple iterations with the system, this is how you can literally generate your thumbnail.
The platform itself has changed too. Algorithms reward watch time, click-through rates, emotional spikes. Naturally, creators adapt. That's survival. But what gets lost when every decision is filtered through data? What happens to experimentation when failure isn't affordable anymore? That's the deeper question. The lie detector moment wasn't explosive. It wasn't some massive scandal, but it symbolized something bigger. It showed that even in controlled, polished content, real emotions and real doubts can surface. And once viewers sense that, they start looking closer. This whole conversation isn't about tearing anyone down. It's about examining the direction of an entire ecosystem. When one creator becomes the blueprint, the platform shifts around that model. And if that model prioritizes scale above all else, others follow. So when people raise concerns early on, maybe they weren't trying to attack. Maybe they were just asking uncomfortable questions. Questions about balance, about sustainability, about whether the platform can still support small, weird, original voices in a world dominated by massive productions. What's clear now is this: the discussion has evolved. Criticism isn't instantly dismissed as jealousy anymore. Viewers are more aware, creators are more vocal, the conversation is more layered, and that awkward tension people felt a year ago, it doesn't feel so random anymore. It was never just about one creator, it was about priorities, about how YouTube's center of gravity slowly shifted from let's make something cool with our friends to optimize, maximize, dominate. And that shift, it matters. There's nothing wrong with scaling up, there's nothing wrong with hiring teams, building companies, or treating content like a serious business. That's smart, that's growth. But when growth itself becomes the product, everything else starts bending around it. Videos stop being pure ideas and start becoming delivery systems. Every upload exists to set up the next one, bigger stakes, bigger reactions, bigger promises, not because the concept demands it, but because the system rewards it. That's what Jack was pointing at. It wasn't MrBeast is bad. It wasn't money ruined YouTube. It was something deeper. When growth is always the solution, creativity turns into math. It becomes strategy over spontaneity, calculation over chaos. At the time, MrBeast responded by talking about effort, years of grinding, reinvesting everything, pushing himself harder than anyone else, doing good, inspiring people. And none of that was false. The work ethic is real, the scale is real, the impact is real, but the response didn't really address the core critique, because the critique wasn't about hustle, it was about gravity. When one creator becomes the blueprint for success, the entire platform starts bending around that model. Suddenly, even creators who never wanted to play that game feel the pressure. Every thumbnail has to scream. Every title has to promise something unbelievable. Every intro has to hook within seconds, or you're told you're not serious about growth. And that pressure doesn't stay at the top. It trickles down. Small creators start feeling like their quiet, personal stories don't stand a chance. Mid-sized creators feel pushed to pivot away from what made their audience love them in the first place.
How's it going, guys? A week ago, I launched an AI thumbnail tool to help small creators make better thumbnails, and I thought people were going to be pretty excited about it, but I definitely missed the mark. If you open up Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. And so I read all your guys' feedback, and I've been thinking a lot about it. And so we just enacted some changes that I think you guys will find positive. And so going forward, there is no AI thumbnail tool. Anyone from now on that signs up for ViewStats Pro, there will not be the AI thumbnail tool. It just doesn't exist. We pulled it down. And on top of that, I wanted to go one step further.
Editors and designers watch unique styles get flattened into whatever trend is currently performing best. Everyone starts chasing the same metrics, using the same pacing, copying the same formulas. Over time, the platform starts to feel less like a playground and more like a production line. That tension was already building long before the Lunchly situation. It just made it impossible to ignore. On paper, Lunchly looked unstoppable. Three massive names, MrBeast, Logan Paul, and KSI, teaming up to launch a modern alternative to Lunchables. Cleaner branding, sleek packaging, a Prime Mini included, a bar on the side. It was built for attention, built for retail shelves, built for scale. From a business standpoint, it made sense, but the issue wasn't whether Lunchly was slightly better or slightly worse than competitors. The issue was the framing, the positioning. It was presented as a better option for kids, leaning heavily on influencer trust instead of fully transparent conversations about nutrition. That's where people started raising eyebrows, because when creators who built their brands on authenticity step into products aimed at younger audiences, the expectations shift, the standard gets higher. And then came Dan TDM's response. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't some explosive takedown. It was calm, simple, almost restrained, just a disappointed tone, a subtle do better. And somehow, that landed harder than any high production critique video ever could, because Dan represents a different era of YouTube, an era where creators weren't racing to build empires, they were building communities. His audience grew around shared experiences, not product lines, around connection, not corporate expansion. So when he spoke up, it didn't feel like jealousy, it felt like concern from someone who remembers what the platform used to feel like. And that's why the moment hit so hard. It exposed the generational divide. On one side, the new blueprint: scale fast, diversify, dominate multiple industries. On the other, the older mindset: protect the community, protect the trust, move carefully when it comes to younger viewers. Neither side is purely right or purely wrong, but the tension between them is real. When creators become brands, brands make business decisions, and business decisions don't always align perfectly with the emotional connection that built the audience in the first place. That's the uncomfortable part. Lunchly wasn't just about snack packs. It symbolized something bigger. It showed how far the influencer economy has evolved, from making videos in bedrooms to launching retail products backed by massive distribution deals. That's a huge leap, but with that leap comes scrutiny. And here's the key point: the criticism wasn't about tearing anyone down, it was about responsibility. When your audience trusts you, especially younger viewers, every move carries weight. Positioning matters, messaging matters, transparency matters. What Jack hinted at, what Dan quietly reinforced, what veteran creators have been feeling for a while, it's all connected. When growth becomes the ultimate metric, everything else risks becoming secondary. Creativity turns strategic, community turns into customer base, and content starts feeling like a funnel. That doesn't mean the platform is doomed. It doesn't mean success is wrong. It just means the conversation has matured. Viewers aren't blindly cheering anymore. They're analyzing, questioning, comparing, and once that awareness spreads, the old "you're just jealous" defense doesn't land the same way. Because this was never about envy. It was about direction. There was a time when selling to kids wasn't wrapped in layers of sleek branding language and influencer credibility.
To really show artists out there that I care, if you go on viewstats.com, under our more tools section, it will say hire thumbnail artists. And if you click that, it'll take you to a page of artist portfolios where you can commission a real thumbnail artist to make you a real thumbnail. So I care more than any of you could ever imagine about the YouTube community. I mean, obviously I'm the biggest YouTuber in the world and I don't take that responsibility lightly. And so, it deeply makes me sad when I do something that, people in the community are upset by. And I also want to put out there that I guarantee you, I have spent more money on thumbnail artists than any other YouTuber.
It was simpler, clearer. You knew when something was an ad. Now it feels blended, polished, almost invisible. So when Jack stepped in after the Lunchly situation, it didn't feel like drama farming. It felt protective, not of his own image, but of an audience that never asked to be marketed to like that. And that's why the backlash didn't fade quickly. It wasn't just creators debating each other. Viewers got involved, parents got involved, longtime fans started saying, wait, this feels different. It wasn't about hating influencers. It was about pushing back on the idea that trust is just another asset to monetize. That once you build credibility, you can plug it into anything and call it value. Then, just as that controversy began cooling down, the AI thumbnail situation lit everything up again. The tool was pitched as empowerment, a way to help smaller creators compete. Auto-generated thumbnails, systems trained on high-performing channels, level the playing field. That was the message. But almost instantly, people noticed the uncomfortable side of it. Styles looked familiar, faces were being mapped, logos appeared in promotional material without permission. Creative identities that people spent years building suddenly looked like data points. Not art, not personality, just patterns to be studied and replicated. That didn't feel like support. It felt like extraction. Jack's reaction was immediate and blunt, and in that moment, it wasn't about thumbnails anymore. It was about ownership, about whether creators still controlled their visual identity or whether everything was about to be automated into sameness. When your brand becomes a data set, something shifts, and this is where the conversation stops being about one person. MrBeast didn't invent the algorithm. He didn't force anyone to copy him. But when the platform rewards one model of success more than any other, it quietly sidelines everything else. Slow content, niche communities, awkward, quiet human moments. Those things don't scale easily. And when scale becomes the main metric of worth, the soul of the platform starts thinning out. That's where the real divide shows up, not creator versus creator, but philosophy versus philosophy. Oh, bigger is always better versus better doesn't always mean bigger. That tension doesn't resolve neatly. It just hangs there, heavy. What made this past year feel uncomfortable wasn't just individual controversies, it was the pattern. Every time the platform drifted toward a line, the response wasn't reflection, it was acceleration. Bigger launches, faster pivots, louder explanations, more polish. That strategy works short term. It keeps momentum high, but it also creates distance. Distance between creators and audiences, distance between intention and impact, distance between what YouTube used to feel like and what it's slowly becoming. To MrBeast's credit, the AI thumbnail tool was walked back. It was removed from new signups. A directory for real thumbnail artists was promoted instead. He emphasized how much he invests in human designers. On YouTube, that kind of public reversal is rare. It showed flexibility, but reversals don't erase instincts. They reveal them. The instinct to automate, the instinct to optimize creativity, the instinct to treat style as something measurable rather than personal. And that instinct isn't unique to one creator. It's what happens when platforms reward performance metrics over texture. Even art starts to feel like something waiting to be streamlined. That's why Jack's frustration didn't come off as clout chasing.
In the world, I've probably spent more money on thumbnail artists than the top 100 creators combined. I mean, I have a small army of thumbnail artists that work for me. I'm looking to hire more thumbnail artists. So I just want to put that out there, and I have no intention of firing my thumbnail artists or anything. Like, this is, just supposed to help make them more effective and blah, blah. I mean, you know what I'm saying. But regardless, it doesn't matter. The tool's down for future people that sign up for Viewstats Pro. And yeah, now it's a funnel to help artists make more money. So I'm really excited. Go check it out. Hey, go to viewstats.com and click on the Hire the Artist tab and go commission real artists, help them make more.
It felt existential. He's not anti-success. He's anti-sterility. His brand has always been messy, unpredictable, sometimes burned out, sometimes brilliant. He hits record without a perfectly engineered arc. That rawness is exactly what doesn't thrive in an environment obsessed with efficiency. So when he looks at a thumbnail factory or a kid-focused product rollout or an AI system trained on other creators' styles and says, "This isn't it," it doesn't sound jealous. It sounds protective of the last layer of YouTube that still feels human. The same instinct showed up during the Lunchly fallout, because Lunchly wasn't just about snack packs, it was about trust. Influencers selling food to younger audiences isn't new, but framing it as better while leaning heavily on brand loyalty instead of deep transparency enters risky territory fast, especially when the creators involved have massive cultural influence and young viewers who look up to them. Dan TDM's Do Better landed because it wasn't aggressive, it wasn't dramatic, it was disappointed. And disappointment from someone people respect hits harder than outrage from someone chasing clicks. Jack backing him wasn't piling on, it was drawing a boundary, saying there's a difference between monetization and responsibility. And audiences felt that. People underestimate viewers. They think fans won't notice careful framing, but audiences are sharp. They can sense when messaging is crafted to avoid scrutiny. And once trust cracks, even slightly, rebuilding it takes more than a polished statement. None of this means MrBeast is some villain. That's the nuance that often gets lost. MrBeast, the person, clearly cares about making the best videos possible. He studies retention, he reinvests heavily, he funds charity projects at a scale that's hard to ignore. He doesn't just talk about impact, he tracks it. But MrBeast the model, that's something different. It's a system, a gravity well, a blueprint that reshapes the platform around it. And when that blueprint becomes the default expectation, everything else starts feeling off. By comparison, slow videos feel lazy, niche ideas feel risky, weird experiments feel unscalable, even authenticity starts sounding like something that needs a strategy deck. That's not entirely his fault, but it is his shadow, and shadows matter. YouTube didn't just adopt his success, it adopted the values behind it. Hyper-optimization, maximum retention, bigger stakes. Then it acted surprised when copycat formats, rushed launches, and hollow optimization multiplied across the site. The last year didn't prove Jack was right because controversies happened. It proved something deeper. The platform itself started showing strain, an awkward lie detector moment that revealed vibes, a kid-focused product launch that felt tone-deaf to some, an AI tool that nearly flattened creative identity. None of these moments exist alone. They're symptoms of the same mindset. When everything becomes about growth, culture risks becoming collateral, but the year also showed something hopeful. Course correction is still possible. The AI tool reversal mattered. Promoting real artists mattered. Listening even briefly mattered. It proved there's still a human being behind the brand capable of recalibrating. That's important because this conversation was never about canceling anyone. It was about diversity of philosophy, about making sure one format doesn't become the only language YouTube speaks. YouTube was never meant to be a product manual. It was meant to be messy, uneven, personal, a place where fingerprints mattered more than polish, and that's the tension still hanging in the air. Jack never called for MrBeast to crash. He never said he wanted him to lose. What he said was simpler and honestly heavier. He asked the rest of the platform not to forget itself. That's a big difference, and that's why a year later his criticism doesn't feel bitter. It feels prophetic. Not because everything completely fell apart, not because some massive disaster proved him right, but because enough moments came close, enough almost mistakes, enough uncomfortable pivots, enough situations where people paused and thought, wait, are we going too far? That's what makes it hit harder now. This was never about picking teams. It was never Team Jack versus Team MrBeast. That framing misses the whole point. The real conversation is bigger than two creators. It's about what happens when success turns into a formula. Because once success becomes repeatable, measurable, and standardized, creativity becomes fragile. When every upload is built off a template, when every thumbnail follows the same visual language, when every idea has to justify itself in analytics before it even exists, the room for risk shrinks. The room for weirdness shrinks. The room for raw, unpolished human moments gets squeezed. And that's dangerous for a platform that was built on chaos. YouTube wasn't born as a corporate ecosystem. It was messy. It was uneven. It was people pressing record in bedrooms, garages, dorm rooms, not knowing if anyone would watch. Some videos flopped, some exploded, some were awkward and brilliant at the same time. That unpredictability was the magic. Now, when something works, it gets studied, replicated, optimized, scaled. And again, scaling isn't evil, growth isn't evil, but when scale becomes the primary value, other values start fading into the background. Community becomes customer base, authenticity becomes branding strategy, creativity becomes content pipeline. That's the shift Jack was pointing at, and the reason it resonates more now is because the platform itself has shown signs of strain, not collapse, not doom, just tension. Moments where viewers pushed back, moments where creators had to reconsider, moments where the machine moved a little too fast and had to correct course. That doesn't mean YouTube is finished. It means it's at a crossroads. If YouTube wants to survive as a culture, not just as a marketplace, it has to protect space for things that don't scale neatly. Space for slower videos, space for niche communities, space for creators who don't scream in thumbnails or promise the impossible in every title, because sometimes the best videos aren't optimized. They're human, they're imperfect, they're a little too long, a little too quiet, a little too specific, and that's exactly why they matter. When everything is engineered for maximum retention, something subtle gets lost. The feeling that you're watching a person, not a product. The sense that you stumbled onto something genuine, not something calculated. That's the tension hanging over all of this. MrBeast represents an incredible level of ambition, discipline, execution that deserves recognition, but the blueprint that formed around him shouldn't become the only acceptable path. There has to be room for other models, other rhythms, other definitions of success, because if every creator starts chasing the same numbers the same way. The platform starts sounding the same, looking the same, feeling the same, and sameness is the one thing creativity can't survive. So no, this isn't about rooting for anyone to fail. It's about rooting for variety, rooting for balance, rooting for a version of YouTube where optimization and originality can coexist without one suffocating the other. That's why the conversation still matters. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the platform is evolving in the right direction? Or do you feel that something human is getting lost in the push for bigger, louder, faster? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. If this breakdown made you think, hit like so more people see it. Share it with someone who cares about where YouTube is heading. And if you want more deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.